Anne-Marie Child said, "A woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create, nurture, and transform." Welcome to Her Story, where we honor women and their journey. Before we begin today, we are in the new location of Home Basics, our location partner. Home Basics for all your furniture and interior needs for your home and office. Today's guest is the trailblazing founder and CEO of Samu, Bhutan's first OTT platform. Formerly a journalist and marketing professional at BBS, Nyema leveraged her diverse experience to lead Samu's innovative journey. Under her leadership, Samu has expanded to become a subscription-based TV service, Samu On Demand, revolutionizing Bhutan's media landscape. Her vision and tenacity have not only transformed how Bhutanese content is consumed, but also paved the way for future media innovations in the region. Nyema's story is one of breaking barriers and leading with passion and purpose. To hear more about her challenges and how she overcame it, and to meet the woman behind Samu, I proudly present to you my former colleague, Nyema Zam. Can you first start with how you decided to join BBS? I mean, it's a very interesting story you told me, but I think you were so young. So how did it all begin?
I was 19 when I joined BBS. In fact, I celebrated my 19th birthday at BBS. It just happened one winter break when I was here and I realized that BBS was recruiting, and I was quite excited because BBS had just launched television, and they were recruiting a whole lot of new team members, and I just gave it a shot, and then I applied for, that time you were able to apply for 2 positions, by the way, so I applied for both the marketing position as well as the reporting position, and I don't know how, but I managed to top both those interviews, and
as a high school graduate.
Yes. Yeah, at that time, I just finished my high school and I was in the first year of college actually, and my parents were so upset with me when they found out that I've decided to work and not to pursue my studies any longer. But at that time when I was 19, the idea of working at BBS, working in television, working in the radio was so exciting that I just felt that this is what I needed to do then. And that's how I started my career at BBS, and I worked there for 19 years.
19 years. Yes. And you joined BBS in 2000, a year after television was introduced in Bhutan. So I'm wondering, what made you feel attracted to this profession? Because it was just a year old. Television was just a year old. There was not a lot of inspiration and motivation and examples to look up to. So what got you interested?
I grew up in Kalimpong, but I used to spend a lot of my winter vacation back in Thimphu. And I used to listen to BBS radio during my winter holidays. So I think I liked the idea of BBS because that time it was radio, and when it moved to television, and back in Kalimpong, we had been watching TV for a long time. Because in Bhutan, television was not there then. But back in Kalimpong, we used to television. So the idea of working for the television channel was so exciting for me then.
And BBS is the place where you, you were working there when you got married and had your 2 sons. And then something hit you. Something made you realize that you have to study. Yeah. Could you please?
It was like for a long time, I enjoyed what I was doing in BBS. In terms of journalism as such, I was more, I took up the role of a radio producer. We did some programs for radio, and I was news reading for BBS News, but I never did reporting. It was much later, actually, towards the end of my career at BBS, that I worked in the newsroom. So until then, it was mostly my role in the marketing department, and also doing multiple things, at BBS, like taking care of international relations, taking care of one of the most infamous projects called multi-service operations, so all that kind of projects that we worked with. And during this phase, I was able to handle multiple portfolios at BBS. And I think a lot of my seniors, they felt that I was able to manage these portfolios, so it didn't matter to them that I did not have the graduate degree. I think it mattered to them that I was able to get work done, But at the end of the day, I think it was after I had my second son, I realized that no matter whatever I did at BBS, the multiple roles I took up, the pay that I took home was at the end of the day based on my qualifications.
True.
And I think being a mother made me realize that, this wasn't something that I should settle with. So how could I change that? In an organization like BBS, they have very structured regulations, so the only way I could change this was by going and upgrading my qualifications, and that's when I decided to go and study. So I was very fortunate. At that time, I had a female boss, one of the first female CEOs at BBS, Pema Chodin, who is now the Foreign Secretary. So when I spoke to her about all these challenges that I faced and how I felt, I needed to go and study, she was so supportive. She was so supportive, she encouraged me, and that's how, I managed to go and study.
Do your undergrad degree, and then you went on to pursue a master's.
Yes. So once I finished my degree, it was, I think, only natural that I go and do even more further studies. But to be honest with it, for a long time, when I was actually working at BBS, I was quite okay, by just being a class 12 pass, doing what she was doing at BBS, and then I told you I needed to go and study. So after I came back, I realized, that my mom, she is like one person who has always believed in me, perhaps much more than I believed in myself. So, she constantly told me that, Zam, you are more than this. You can do more than this. You're a great mother, you take care of your family so well, you work hard, but I know you have much more than this in you. And she told me that she needed me to go and study further. She encouraged me to do my master's, and she told me, just trust me, if you apply for a master's scholarship, you will get it. She has so much faith in me, so. And in the beginning, I just brushed it off. I was like, okay, now I'm going to be doing my degree, that's about it, But then what really made me think about doing my master's was that in 2016, it was in 2015 actually, I lost my mom. So she passed away. And when she passed away, I think for the first 6 months, when I was dealing with losing her, and I was dealing with so many things that I regretted, about my time with her, I felt that the only way I could redeem myself, and make her proud of me was by trying to go and pursue my master's. So that's how, I tried, and she was right. I only needed to try, so it was my first attempt at an international scholarship. And I got selected. So I went and did my master's at one of the most prestigious and one of the best universities in Australia at the UWA.
Wow. It's amazing how a woman in your life was able to push you and motivate you and inspire you to pursue further and go for bigger dreams and bigger goals. And even after she passed away, she kept pushing you, and that is what led to you studying and doing your master's memo. And then when you came back from your master's, that's when everything changed. What happened right after you finished and came back and you joined BBS?
Yes. So, so while I was in Australia, I had the first-hand experience of using a platform like Netflix. I'd heard about it, but I'd never used it before. So when I started using it, I was very intrigued by it, the kind of content they had on the platform, and you won't believe it, but despite the fact that I had so many assignments, I spent time reading case studies on Netflix, and in fact I read 23 case studies on Netflix by the time I finished my master's, and I learned so much about Netflix. And about the most interesting part for me was that how it had disrupted the entire creative sector. So that it brought out new formats, it changed the entire game of how we consumed content. And that really led me to think that, okay, this is perhaps something, that we could do in Bhutan. And I felt that because as somebody who has worked at BBS for a very long time, I had a big concern, and that was that not many young people were watching BBS. So I felt that, where are the young people now? They're mostly on their devices. So I felt perhaps it was time that BBS, transitioned, from a traditional broadcaster to a more digital broadcaster. So when I came back, I actually pitched the idea of, You know, like that time it was not SAMU. You know, I hadn't thought about SAMU then, but more about BBS going more digital. You know, so that's when I actually thought about it. But of course, like with all the challenges that BBS has, this was not perhaps something that was a priority for them then. You know, so it was like I had a lot of thinking to do, but at the same time, when I got back to BBS after my master's, I realized so many things had changed. I didn't have my old role because as per the service rules at BBS, your positions is not protected when you're studying. So when I came back, I had to start fresh. So that's when I decided that it was perhaps time to move on, you know, and it was very hard because I was so emotionally attached to BBS. Literally, this was the organization I grew up in, you know, so it was home, and it was so hard to leave. So when I finally made the decision, it was hard, you know, but then I always felt that maybe, you know, when I look back now, everything that was happening, you know, then was preparing me for SAMU, you know, so I do feel that way, so, you know, so growing up in BBS, you know, learning so many things, handling so many portfolios, it perhaps, you know, it was the best way for preparation for SAMU. That's what I felt. Yeah.
So when you began on this this solo journey with SAMU, I mean, what made you believe that you could? Because it's such a big dream, and for a young lady to feel like that. And by that, you had separated from your previous partner, and you were a single parent to 2 boys, and you had quit the only job that you'd ever known.
At the time when I decided to start SAMU, by then I was actually married. You know, I had a very good partner who, number one, I think, you know, was the reason that I started SAMU, because he was super supportive, you know, and it didn't matter that I was going to be investing 19 years of my work at BBS retirement benefits into developing the prototype for the SAMU platform, you know, so he totally supported me, and I think that's where I got my courage from also. And so I decided, like, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, and I had this feeling that this was perhaps something that we really required for Bhutan, you know, because we have been looking at the film industry for such a long time. And what I realized is that there was so much potential in the industry, but the thing was, because there were so much limitations, the industry was not really growing, you know, and it was not being able to do things that it could do. So I felt this was the right time for us to pursue SAMU, and it only had to get me started, you know. So I think it's always important for somebody to make that first step, you know. Everything then falls into place. That's what I've believed, you know, that once you make that first step, you know, because I've heard that a lot of people in the film industry actually really felt that Bhutan really required a digital platform, an OTT platform. But despite discussing about it, nobody had the courage to take it on. You know, so when I came in, I found that this was what even the people in the industry wanted. So because this was what they wanted, they came forward and supported me wholeheartedly. You know, so that's how we were able to do whatever we were able to do with SAMU so far, because the people in the industry welcomed that. People in the industry stepped up, you know, they said, okay, let's do this together, you know, because it is a win-win for everyone. You know, so that's how it worked for us.
I want to take you back again. As a kid, as a young girl, did you have inspirational women around you?
I think one of the biggest inspiration and, you know, most powerful women, strong women that I've had the very good fortune and the blessing to know, perhaps the 3 women, you know. One is my grandmother, my late grandmother. She was this fierce woman, you know, who moved, one day decided to move from Sikkim with 3 children to Bhutan, and then raised her children here, you know, in a place that she was not familiar with.
With your grandfather?
No, she left my grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah, she left my grandfather, you know. So she decided to leave him because she was not happy in that relationship.
So she was married to someone Sikkimese,
Yes.
and she's Bhutanese?
No, she was from Sikkim.
Oh, okay.
She was Sikkim. So my maternal side of the family, they are actually Sherpas.
So wait, so she left her husband, decided she was not happy anymore, and she
just took her kids, you know, got into a car, didn't know where she was going actually, and somehow landed up in Bhutan. You know, that was like really, I think it was in the early 50s, you know. So and then my uncle was just a breastfeeding child then. So with her 2 daughters and 1 son, an infant son, she reached Bhutan. And can you imagine at that time, for a single woman to raise 3 children, what it would have taken her, the kind of grit, that kind of determination, So I've always looked up to her as this amazing woman, and she has pretty much lived life at her own terms, So and she was such a big entrepreneur. They started business in Paro, and so the first years of my life I grew up in Paro with my grandmother. The second person who's had a really big influence in my life is actually the royal grandmother, Nyema Zam. And because I grew up in Kalimpong, because my father used to work for the royal grandmother. So I remember these moments where, for some reason, the royal grandmother would choose me to come over to the palace to read to her and her mother, late Rani Chuni. So I have such fond memories from then, and I always used to be in awe of her. And the older I got, I've been reading so much about her, and she has been such a big influence and such an inspirational woman, and somebody that I really look up to. And then definitely I feel the third person, who's had a big influence, perhaps much later part of my life than early, is my mom. So my mom and me, we had a very difficult relationship in the beginning because she was very, very strict. She was very protective, So as a teenager, I hated that. I didn't like that about her at all. So because of that, I never could have the kind of friendship that I wanted with my mother. But it was much later, that after I became a mother, that I became a little more closer to her. And then later, after she passed away, I realized, I've been looking back, and I realized that all she was trying to do was protect me. Take care of me, look out for me, But at the same time, she used to push me constantly. And she was also somebody, like she was an entrepreneur also. So I feel like I get this entrepreneurship, from my grandmother and my mother. They were not women who just depend on men around them, They were women that they needed to do things for themselves. They were fiercely independent.
Who's your support circle?
Definitely, I think first is my partner, So my husband, he's, I think, my rock. He supports me wholeheartedly. He's, in fact, one of the biggest feminists I've met, So I couldn't have done this without him. Besides them, my best friends. So my best friends, like, some of them you know also because they were worked with us at BBS, Karina, Dikki, Tara. So they have been the force behind me. They've always pushed me, they've always believed in me. So even when I sometimes get worried and I get scared, they are there to tell me, no, you can do this, You've done this, you've come so far, you can do this. So they are there. And then definitely my family, my children, my brother, they have been the biggest support systems, my sisters. When we started SAMU, for 18 months, I was barely home. So, it was my brother and my sister who had to take care of my boys. I was barely home, I was at work all the time, even on Sundays. And I couldn't have done it without them, supporting me and my children that time.
Nyema, let's talk about failure. How do you deal when things don't work the way you've planned it?
In terms of failure, since we started SAMU, I think last year, there were moments when I felt really disheartened and really disappointed in myself as well, because last year was a very challenging year for everyone. The economy was doing so bad, and definitely it had an impact on SAMU as well. When people are not able to have disposable income, they cut down on the expenses. So entertainment was definitely something that they would cut down on. And so because business was also slow, we were not able to expand as much as we wanted to. And that meant that we were not able to do as many projects last year as we had intended to do. So I did see like some really talented people from the music and from the film sector leave the country. And I personally felt like I'd failed them, when that happened. I felt that, it was my responsibility. I don't know why, but I felt that way, that it was my responsibility to make sure that we become successful, like to a point, that we are able to retain talent in the country. We're able to pay well. So I felt so disappointed in myself, and even today I think for me that I challenge myself, that I want to take SAMU to a point, where number one, we become the highest paid private company in Bhutan. That's my aspiration for everybody who works at SAMU. And secondly, I want to make the industry so vibrant that every young who with a dream of becoming an actor or a singer or a director or whatever in the film industry or the creative industry, they will stay in Bhutan, and they will fulfill their dreams in Bhutan.
Do you have like a mantra, like a motto or a mantra that you practice whenever you need to ground yourself or whenever you need to push yourself a little more?
I think one person that all of us look up to, His Majesty. And for SAMU also, as well as for me personally also, I always look at, whenever I'm going through difficult times, I always reflect on His Majesty. That His Majesty is facing perhaps one of the biggest challenges that Bhutan has seen, And while people have that choice, people are saying, oh, nothing is working here in Bhutan, I'm going to move abroad. His Majesty does not have that space, to say that, to move. He's constantly, trying so hard to make things work for Bhutan. And when I think about everything that His Majesty is dealing with, I feel that at my scale, the challenges and the struggle that I'm dealing with at SAMU is so small, so insignificant, so much that I can do. I can push a little bit, I think we'll be able to solve those problems. So I always take inspiration from that thought. So I've realized that the most challenging phases, I've reflected on what His Majesty is doing for us, and that has actually kind of, given me that rejuvenation, that energy, that strength, to move ahead.
True. Nyema, your professional achievements are there for everybody to see, but I want to know your personal achievements. When have you felt like, what, wow, I've grown, or wow, this is something that I learned from this, or wow, this is how I feel like I've changed and improved. Have you ever felt like that before?
I've always believed in growth. I've always been somebody who constantly pushes myself, and I'm perhaps my biggest critic. So I do feel that, although a lot of people think that I'm kind of like, people look up to me, people tell me, that I'm an inspiration to them, but I still feel that I haven't reached that place yet where I really, really want to be. There is so much more that I could improve upon, and but it's like, a journey of life. Every day we are growing, but I felt like one moment when I actually felt a little fulfilled, in myself, and a little proud of myself was not when we launched SAMU actually. It was that moment when one of our feature films, Gangnam Girls, won an award at the UK Asia Film Festival, and Quinsel published a caricature.
Oh.
So Quinsel published a caricature, and then it was called, it was like Gangnam Girls trophy was there, and then we were like, you are inspirational, we are proud. And I felt that time that I truly done something for the women of Bhutan. Wow. That a lot of young people were looking up to me, and looking up to women that I'm working with, At that moment, I felt a little bit of happiness, I think, perhaps, in myself, but it was just for a moment. I'm constantly looking for the next big thing to do.
As you should, as you should. Nyema, for young women watching, what strengths should women have for them to be able to pursue their dreams and goals?
It's important to believe in yourself. That's the number one thing. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. And where does the belief in yourself truly come from? It comes from when you know, that you have invested in yourself. It doesn't matter in terms of qualification or whatever, I feel that qualification is something that we can always acquire, right? But in terms of investment in your personal growth, and I felt that reading is something a lot of young people don't do now, and I felt that for me, since I read a lot right now also, and I used to read so much when I was younger. So reading made me be so good at language, at communication skills, So that was perhaps why I got the job at BPS, even though, I was competing with graduates from Sharapsi, right? So that is one. But most importantly, I felt, that experience is important. So I do feel that in Bhutan right now, we have a lot of young entrepreneurs who are just out of college and want to start a business. And I feel like, yes, it's important to dream, it's important to pursue your dream. But then, nothing like experience, because I felt that if I didn't have the experience that I had with BBS, I would not have been able to do SAMU at all, right? If I was this young person fresh out of college trying to do a project like SAMU, nobody would have taken me seriously. Not the people that I worked with or financiers, or anyone else. So experience matters. That doesn't mean that you have to work like me, like 19 years to pursue something that you are passionate about. But definitely, I think working will teach you some things that nothing else would. No school, no college, no university would teach you what experience can teach you. So if you want to become an entrepreneur, I would advise that make sure you work. At least give yourself 2 to 3 years,
Work for somebody else.
to work for somebody else, get that first-hand experience of a field that you want to pursue. And then, through that learning experience, build the company that you want to build. I think that's very important because, there are people who have like, 17-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old self-made entrepreneurs, billionaires in the country as well, or in the world, not in our country, but there are very few of them. They are rare, Most of us, we have to work hard at our dreams. So, and secondly, the entrepreneurship journey is not at all glamorous. A lot of people think it's glamorous, but it's kind of lonely also at times because, so many people's hopes and dreams are tied up with you. Especially if you're working with a company like SAMU, you're not just one person employing one person. You're one person that is employing a whole team, and then you're working with people in the larger industry. So a lot of people's dreams and aspirations are also tied with your company. So you really have to give your best, So I do feel that courage is definitely important. Grit is something that's very important, and you have to be absolutely resilient, So, and only life can teach you that. You cannot learn resilience in school or in college.
So we'll go to the Barbara Walters question. I'm going to give you a sentence. You're going to fill it up. Tupka. Nyema Zam is?
A dreamer.
All right, Nyema, we are done with the first segment. But before we go to the next segment, do you have any last words?
All I want to say is, that I'm really blessed with the team that I have at SAMU, and I really wanted to share with them that I'm proud of each one of you, and you guys are amazing. I can't do what I do at SAMU without you all, so I want you all to know that I value each one of you at SAMU. A mediocre performer in my favorite sport, because I'll not be able to excel in something that I don't like doing. A personal chef any day. Reverse time, definitely, because there is so little time left to do what I want to do. Probably in this case, I would pick up swimming then, because I don't know how to swim yet.
As we conclude today's episode of Her Story, we're reminded of the incredible journeys of women like Nyema Zam, who have paved their own paths and led with distinction. Their stories show us that when women pursue their dreams, they not only transform their own lives, but also inspire and empower entire communities. Women possess the unique power to create, nurture, and transform, and the world needs their leadership now more than ever. We encourage every woman watching to chase her dreams with determination and passion, for within her lies the potential to shape a brighter, more inclusive future. Thank you for joining us, and remember, your story is a part of the greater narrative of change and progress. Until next time, keep writing your own Her Story.